Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Seventh, and today I will be introducing you to the process of conlanging. Now, I won't be the first person on the internet to tell you how this works. There's a bunch of fantastic YouTubers who are much better at linguistics than I am that have videos, series about this stuff. Some of my favourites and some of the ones that I've used to learn I'll link in the description for you to have a nosy. But today I'm starting on a new conlang for the 7th cycle, my audio drama on this channel. We are going to be using it for a species that is influenced by the fae of mythology, not the romantasy version of them. But I haven't really given them a name yet. We're going to be using this language when we get up to that point to sort that out. Now, the first thing you want with a language is what is it used for? Who are the people who are using it? What are your favourite parts of other languages that you know that you want to add in here? What are your least favourite parts? For example, I studied German for about 5 years and a couple of months of ancient Greek. Now, my favourite parts of these two languages is the compound nouns and gendered nouns from German, and also the gendered nouns from ancient Greek. But I absolutely hate declensions in ancient Greek. So they are things that I would add in and remove. But for this language, because we're basing it on a society that doesn't hold gender in as high a regard as most of the ones on Earth do, I'm going to be removing gendered nouns from this. Now, as I said before, I'm not like the be all and end all on linguistics. Have a nosy round, watch other channels and stuff for that. But a good starting point, once you've got what type of people you're writing this language for, or the purposes that you're writing a language, this is where we introduce the IPA. Now, the IPA, the one I have here, will also be linked in the description. It's free, and you get to hear the sounds that it for each symbol. Now, for you, those of you who don't know, the IPA is the International Phonetic Alphabet. It contains all of the sounds that humans can produce. So if you're doing a language for an animal-like species, it might not be the most helpful. You might have to introduce sounds that only, for example, crickets can make. But this is a good base point to jump from. Now, here in the IPA, we've got vowels and we've got consonants. And the fun thing about this one is that you get to press on each of these letters here, the ones that we actually have symbols for, and hear what they sound like.
Ka, a ka.
Now, the top here is which part of the mouth that you use, I'm pretty sure. I might be wrong on this, to produce the sound. And I think this side is where in the mouth. Don't quote me on that. There's probably someone who can explain that way better than I can. But for the one that I'm starting here, I want more seasidey sounds, more flowing sort of sounds. And we're going to start with the consonants. Now, you see I've already got something in here under the dental plosive. That is a glottal stop. glottal stops are something that naturally occur, especially in Northern English accent like mine. For example, cannet is can and not. There's the breathing gap in between those. It kind of appears whenever you put an apostrophe for truncation in, but also when accents just don't pronounce certain letters, that's where a glottal stop appears. Now I'm going to do the consonants and then I'm going to jump back and give you a listen to all of them so you understand why I've chosen them and maybe what the symbol actually represents. So I've just finished putting the consonants in and I'm going to go down row by row with the IPA to give you a listen. Now, some of the sounds might sound like there's a vowel involved as well, but that's usually to help bring the sound of the letter itself over. So we're going to move back to the IPA, and to be honest, it might be easier if I just split screen this for you guys. There we go. So let's start with the glottal stop and then we can move down as we go. Now, right, before I start, you can see here that there's a sort of specific way that I've picked sounds. Ones that are in the same column as each other, and ones that are in the same rows. Now with this, it's more easier for a person to produce the sound when they're similar. It's easier to cycle through each sound in a word when they're in similar positions on the IPA. As you can see, all of the fricatives I have here are all in one row, where I have 2 glottal sounds in a column, 2 palatal sounds in a column, and 2 retroflex and 2 alveolar in a column. This is because it's easier for the mouth to move from this sound to one of these sounds than it would be from up here to over there. There needs to be some sort of connection. I've got, I believe, 11 consonants here, and I know that doesn't sound a lot, but when we move on to next week, when I do consonant clusters and word structure with you guys, that'll increase the size of them. So we're going to start with a glottal stop, and then we're going to move through the sounds. And in places I'll tell you why I've chosen them.
Ah, ah, ah.
Now we're going to move down to palatal. I mean the nasal raw palatal column.
Nya, anya.
Now I know that sounds a bit like a Nyan cat sound, but I think it's going to introduce some interesting combinations to words. And I believe from there we move down to the tap or flap. Now out of all of the R sounds, this one here feels right. No, sometimes with sound choices, it's just the ones that feel like they fit the purpose that you want, not the ones that obviously do. And when you just sort, well, I think I need a sort of robust consonant in here that actually makes the words sound like they have some staying power and not that they're just going to float off into the wind.
Ra, ara.
And now we're going to move on to all of the fricatives, where we're starting to see some Greek symbols.
fa.
Now with this F sound, it sounds a lot more like the words that are introduced in the seaside or air sort of based things than the other F sound,
Fa.
which is a lot more short of a sound and feels a bit stagnant compared to the other one. Now we can move on to the Greek symbol of theta, which I'm sure you can kind of guess what sound it's going to make based on its name.
Tha. Tha.
Now that feels more smooth as a sound than some of the others there. Now we're going to move on to the S and the Z sound.
Sa. Za.
Now, I'm kind of iffy on using the Z because it gives me more electricity vibes than nature, but I think that's just because a lot of onomatopoeia based on electricity uses a lot of Zs in it. Now we're gonna move on to an S sound, I think, that kind of looks like a Greek S.
Sha.
No, that's the sh sound, which also gives me seaside vibes.
Sha.
Now, these two sounds do sound very similar, and that's something that you're going to come across with the IPA. Sounds that sound similar, but you're probably just going to use the same character for the writing form. And now the h sound that I've decided to introduce because we have a sh sound.
Aha.
Now that compared to the other H sound
Aha.
gives it a more r sound similar to the r sound that we are using over here. Feels similar to that one in sound. I'm going to play them next to each other and you can tell me if I'm wrong or not.
Ra. Ara. Aha.
And the more like breathy out sort of sound that it's got. And I believe our last sound is this L.
La. Allah.
Yes, there we go. That's our last sound, the L sound, which is also used in a lot of English seaside words. And this is a very different set of consonants than my last and first language. Here we are, which is a lot more hard consonants. A lot more hard consonants, just due to what its purpose is, really. It's for a secret group of assassins and healers. So I felt like the hard consonants gave a sense of urgency. We don't have time to let the sound carry on. We've got a job to do and we've got to do it. Now here we've got the consonants in, and next are the vowels. Now with the vowels on the IPA, you're going to get two, maybe three sounds that you're going to hear a lot, and that is an E sound, an O sound, or U, and an sound. I haven't found with this IPA that there is a specific A sound, so I'm going to throw that into my collection of sounds that I'm going to have here, because it feels quite important for this seasidey sort of vibe. So I'm going to do what I did with consonants, and I will be back in a second. I am now back after doing the vowels, and as you can see here, we have a very different orientation than the consonants. This is based on how open and closed your mouth is when you pronounce them. And similar with the consonants, there will be some symbols that use one letter that you regard with one sound for a different sound. Like the I here,
E,
which is an E sound. I'm pretty sure the J in the consonants over here, if I can find it. Here we are, here's the J.
Ya, allá.
Which is kind of the J sound, but it sounds more like a Y sound. Which is something that you're going to have to... Oh no, here's the J.
Ya, allá.
That is very much more of a Y sound. So that's something that you're going to have to figure out when you choose the symbols that you're going to associate which sound with when you actually write it. So, consonants, we've got the E sound. Vowel, sorry. We've got the E sound.
U,
Now we've got an OO sound. Now we're moving down to the
E,
A, and this O with a line through, which feels like it's a Scandinavian language. Which I think I'm going to use an E with an umlaut on top to do that. Or I might just keep the symbol as it is when I use it. Now we're going all the way down to this gap here between open, mid and open for our A and E that is squished together.
A,
And our upside down A. Now we also have the I here, because going through all of that, I didn't really hear that sound. And this here is now all of our sounds. We might have to add some back in later. We've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 vowels to 11 consonants. Now don't worry, we'll be upping the consonant number next week when we add in consonant clusters, but we might even then have to add sounds in that we kind of missed on the initial collection. Some sounds that we put together that might equal a different sound on the IPA. But that's it for me for this week. I have been 7th, and this is the start of Conlanging the Fae.